Hey guys, it's me. I know it's a Monday right now. I decided to film a surprise episode because I was honestly feeling a little bit bored and kind of wanted to entertain myself, really. So hopefully you guys will find this entertaining as well. Tonight I am going to share, well, I guess a couple weeks ago I started sharing some more stories about the K-pop world and stuff about Korea. And I wanted to continue that tonight, but I figured it would be best to do it as a pre-record because I have a live coming up this Wednesday with Jason that I've been looking forward to, and I hope that you guys join me for that one as well. It's going to be a doozy. Oh boy. So, yeah. This one tonight is a pre-record, and it's just a topic that I wanted to bring up because I thought it would be interesting to share, and I know that a lot of you folks who are listening at home don't know about this particular story. I mean, people in Korea know about this story, but I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people in Korea who are not listening to this. So most of my friends here are from the Bigfoot cryptid worlds. They just happen to find themselves here, so I figured I might as well share an interesting story. Probably one of the most disturbing and saddest stories in the K-pop world. So, but before I start this story, I want to maybe give a brief introduction by talking a bit about Korea as a whole. So, Korea is, for those of you who aren't very familiar with Asian culture or what it's like to be living in Asia, amongst the other Asian nations, I guess, Korea has always had the reputation of being the land of the beautiful people. Um, Korea's always had the reputation of having, the most beautiful women and the most handsome men, right? Um, that's been a big, yeah, that's been a big, I guess, idea that a lot of other people in Asian countries have. And it's not just the people, but also things like beauty products. Korean beauty products are some of the most coveted in all of Asia. I know of people from like Southeast Asia, like Thailand and Vietnam and the Philippines, who would travel all the way to Korea just to go shopping for beauty products and skincare products and Korean makeup. And it's also very highly coveted and prized, right? All for, world renowned. The reason why Korean dramas and K-pop is so popular, you know, because again, last time I mentioned the parasocial relationship. People are just kind of obsessed with these people, and a lot of it has to do with their looks. Um, K-pop artists, a lot of them are a good-looking bunch. That's why I chose this background. The girl in the white on the left, that's Jisoo. She's the leader of Blackpink, widely regarded as the prettiest girl in all of K-pop. The girl on the right with her tongue out, that's Soyeon. That's my favorite girl. She was the same girl I had as the background, the one that was sneering next to Dogman when I did the K-pop First Paranormal episode. That's her. This is just a different picture of her. Um, yeah, Korea's always had that reputation of being the land of the beautiful people. I've had some of my Korean male buddies when I was living there. They would tell me stories about how they would just, during their vacations and trips, they would just go down to Southeast Asia, places like Thailand and Vietnam and the Philippines, where women would just throw themselves at them. One, because they were considered very attractive, and a lot of these people in these other Asian countries were so. You also have to consider that like people in Vietnam, for example, a lot of them will, if you go to their homes and look at like what kind of movies and shows they watch, a lot of them are watching like Korean shows, listening to Korean music. It's called the Korean wave, and it's pretty much taken over Asia, if not the rest of the world. That's why K-pop is like one of the most popular forms of music in the world, in the global music industry. That's why Korean shows on like Netflix, like Squid Games, and movies like Parasite. Although their draw isn't because of all the beautiful people. But the Korean wave is, yeah, it's here, and people have this reputation of Koreans for being exceedingly good looking. Now, that's not to say that that's a boast, because there are a lot of drawbacks to that I will be getting into. Um, for one, the biggest drawback is, speaking as someone who spent nearly 10 years living over there, I can say without a shadow of a doubt that South Korea is probably culturally one of the most shallowest peoples ever. Like, people in America think that Americans are shallow. Boy, you haven't seen shit. Um, all of the best plastic surgeons are in this one place called Apgujeong. It's a district in Seoul that's next to Gangnam. You guys know Gangnam from Gangnam Style, Psy. Gangnam is like a ritzy area. It's like in the southern part of the main city of Seoul. And right next to that is this very posh, very rich, affluent area called Apgujeong. And in Apgujeong, next to Gangnam, there's this one street. It's literally called Medical Street. And basically, it's got all the top plastic surgeons all up and down this one street. These plastic surgeons are some of the most renowned. Um, they're the best. Like, women from China and Japan, like wealthy women from all over Asia, even some women from like the States and like Europe, they come to Korea just to get work done for plastic surgery, because we do have the best plastic surgeons, because we shallow as fuck. All right. Let me give you an illustration of how fucking shallow Koreans can be. Okay. So if you guys look at my channel, do you see that portrait of me wearing that business looking suit on my channel, I guess, main page? That picture of me was taken when I was 26 years old. And that is actually my resume picture. That's right. In South Korea, every job applicant has to submit with their resume a picture of themselves. It's actually included in the resume. Like, you know how like you have the format where you have the heading with the, I guess, the introduction. But on top of that, in the middle of the page, on the very top, will be a small area where you put your picture. Well, see, in Korea, if you want to be considered for any kind of position, your picture has to be included with the resume, because they don't want no fucking uggos applying for their jobs. If you don't include a picture, your resume, no matter how good, is immediately disqualified. And if you submitted a picture and you look like shit, they're not going to accept you, because they shallow like that. See, in Korea, the reason why people in Korea are so good looking is because Korean society is so shallow that ugly people, they do not have a chance. Like, if you're ugly, you can't get a job. We Koreans, we be running a tight ship like that. So the pressure is extremely fierce for women and men. Like, there's a lot of guys who get plastic surgery over there too. I've seen it. Um, it's pretty remarkable. Hanging out with a dude and just looking at his face, and I'm like, yo, this motherfucker got work done. Damn, dude. And the competition is fierce. And a lot of women feel a lot of pressure to get work done on their faces, because it's not just for some kind of beauty contest or to get a modeling gig. A lot of these women will get plastic surgery just to get a job, like a corporate job at like Samsung or Hyundai, like at their corporate office. If you even want to be considered for a job, you have to look attractive. So a lot of these people will spend a fuck ton of money getting work done, plastic surgery. Some of the best surgeons in the world, like I said, women from all over the world will be coming to Korea just to buy our beauty products and get plastic surgery. I mean, people think Beverly Hills is bad. Man, you ain't seen shit. Try going down to Apgujeong. I've worked near there. My ex-girlfriend, when we were seeing each other, she was living there. She didn't get plastic surgery like that. She just happened to have an apartment in that area. and walking up and down the streets, you would see so many freaking women with like bandages on their faces. It wasn't even funny. I remember one time I was making a joke to her. I was like, man, this is like mummy town. Everyone here to be looking like mummies with all faces all wrapped up after getting plastic surgery done. It is such a common sight. That's what Korea is. And yeah, that is why we're considered a land of the beautiful people, because ugly people can't survive. And if you ugly, you better go to a plastic surgeon if you want to get that fucking job. Like I said, we run a tight ship. So it's not all it's cracked up to be. There's a lot of fucked up shit that happens because as a result of our obsession with beauty and looks and just our vanity. And that is going to introduce my topic for tonight. Again, probably one of the saddest, and probably one of the most disturbing stories in all of K-pop, in all of Korea. And I first heard about the story actually back in 2006 when I first arrived to Korea. This story was all over the news. And when I first got off that plane and I got my apartment and that job, I turned on the news, opened a newspaper, and I'm like, what the fuck kind of weird place did I land myself into? So this is the story of a woman named Hung. That's her last name, Hung. First name is Myoku. This is her. She is from the alpha generation, as I would like to call it, of K-pop. Yeah, this was from back in the Dizay. So let me tell you a real quick explanation about how generations work. So we're in our fourth generation of K-pop. Like these two ladies in the background here, they're considered, well, I don't know if Jisoo counts as third generation or fourth generation. She might be the last of the third generation, like start of the fourth generation. But that, yeah, Blackpink is a little bit special. But Soyeon on the right with the tongue, she's fourth generation. BTS, they were more like the end of the third generation. So the fourth generation is really the post BTS scene. This lady here, Hang Myoku, she was pre first generation. This was, well, let's start from the beginning. So Hang Myoku, she was born in 1963 in Seoul, in South Korea. 1963 in South Korea at the time, like, was post-war. Pretty much everyone was destitute, and like third world nation levels of destitution. And this is her as a kid. So she grew up in a real poor family. Her father was unemployed. Grew up dirt poor. This is her with her parents, a little bit older. They didn't have much. Most of the people in that time didn't have much. As a matter of fact, that's the reason why a lot of them left. That's the reason why my parents left and ultimately wound up in Toronto, Canada, where I was born, and then they moved to New Jersey, where I grew up. So she was one of those people that never, like, her family was never able to leave Korea. So they grew up in pretty poor conditions. And again, her father was essentially unemployed. Her mother did, I don't remember learning about what her mother did, but it probably wasn't the best of jobs. So growing up, she wanted to actually earn money for her parents. And she was known as to be this is 1960s Korea. Again, the first generation of K-pop wouldn't begin until about 1994-ish. So this is like the pre-alpha, the prehistoric days of K-pop, where it's just music from Korea, really. It's not even a genre. So this woman, Hang Myoku, who wanted to earn money for her poor and destitute parents, who was also had the reputation for being a very talented singer and a very beautiful woman, eventually wound up moving to Japan and working as a cabaret singer and as a model. This is her in her early 20s performing. That's what she looked like, performing in those old school bands. Now at this point, this is like what, early 80s. Like I'd probably just been born like a year before this. But at this time, she is touring around Japan, singing and performing, also appearing in photo shoots and advertisements and TV shows. And she was just known as a striking beauty. She was well known in Japan and Korea for her looks and for her talent. And she was eventually kind of known as the Korean Brooke Shields. People found her particularly attractive because she had actually some very like Caucasian features, not usual for Korean women. So that's why a lot of people, the reputation she actually earned for herself while she was in her career prime was the Korean Brooke Shields. Yeah, I know she doesn't look like Brooke Shields. That's kind of what they called her, though. I don't know. I guess whatever. But yeah, that's what she was known for. And again, very pretty girl, very charming. She would perform, she would sing, and yeah, that's her. Hong Myoku. Man, I must have been in diapers when this picture was taken. Shit, it's crazy to think about how long ago that was. Okay, so eventually she started getting a little older. As she grew into her late 20s, all these new younger models and singers started to come into the scene who were in their early 20s. So even as like a late 20s, 28-year-old, she was still considered kind of like past her prime. And I guess that filled her with a lot of angst. Um, she started feeling very self-conscious about it because she was becoming slightly older. This is kind of her in her late. Yeah, that's her. So she does what I guess a lot of women do nowadays is she got her first procedure done. At first, it was nothing crazy. It was just like kind of filler, like filler in her. She noticed some like wrinkles in her forehead. Went to the plastic surgeon. They put some filler in her forehead to get rid of the wrinkles, and she felt real fantastic about it. And she was like, she fell in love. She was hooked. Um, Eventually, she started getting, filler here, filler there. She's got different types of work done to get rid of wrinkles. Um, and this is the point where she kind of like, when she was in Korea, her friends and family started to notice some odd behaviors about her. Um, Allegedly, one of the common, because they interviewed a bunch of her friends, and one of the things they said about her was allegedly she would spend hours in front of the mirror just staring at her face, looking at every single inch, trying to find whatever imperfection. Like the amount of time you and I spend in front of like the TV or computer screen or in front of the phone, that was the amount of time she spent just staring into a mirror. Extreme levels of vanity. People started noticing that there were some signs of mental illness that were beginning to exhibit. Um, I think now we would call it extreme body dysmorphia, but she would start getting more and more and more plastic surgery, primarily fillers to get rid of perceived imperfections like wrinkles and creases, to the point where eventually her face started getting a little bloated, if you notice. Like her skin is very shiny and white, but you notice like it looks a little bloated. Now here, like you can see her, like her face is a bit poofy, but it's not because she's gained weight. If you look at the rest of her body, she's actually quite thin. You notice her face is starting to get a little bigger here. But look at her arms, look at her shoulders. She's not an overweight woman. That's just filler, right? Um, eventually it started becoming such an issue where all she would do is obsess and then just get more work done and more work done. She was eventually starting to burn through her savings. Now, because of the work that she had gotten, ironically, this made her look so weird that she couldn't find work anymore because she was so overdone with plastic surgery. People looked at her like she was some kind of like freak monster or whatever. You also have to keep in mind this is in the 80s. The whole plastic surgery scene in Korea didn't really develop until maybe late 90s. So this is when all of this technology and all the medical science was still very much in its infancy. So the techniques and abilities of the doctors back then were not going to be as refined as they are now. Um, yeah. So the more work she got done, the weirder her face started to look. The weirder her face started to look, the fewer gigs she was able to get, which fueled her own self-consciousness and mental illness, which made her get even more plastic surgery. Now, according to interviews with her family, they had noticed these mental illness issues. The fact that she was just sitting there staring in front of the mirror when not getting plastic surgery. And so eventually she had burned through so much of her own savings and she was getting so few gigs that she was forced to move back home with her parents because she didn't have any income and she was burning through her savings. You know, this shit ain't cheap, right? So eventually her family and her brother they decide to scrap together all of their savings to get one final plastic surgery because in their minds they thought that that was going to fix everything and help her get her confidence back. It didn't. um, it just made her more crazy with getting plastic surgery and made her more obsessed, and she kept going down this path of wanting more and more plastic surgery. Eventually, again, look at how big her face got. And again, her body is not that fat. That's just filler right there. So they realize that now at this point, it has escalated her mental illness, the severity of it escalated to the point where it was, according to friends and family, full blown schizophrenia, meaning that she was starting to hear voices. She would stare into the mirror for hours at a time every day to the point where she was starting to hear voices telling her that she was too ugly, that she was too old, that all the other women were prettier. And according to interviews with her, she said that the only way she could quiet the voices was to inject filler into her face. She would inject like some kind of filler. She'd go to the doctor, they would inject it, the voices would subside. She would feel so much better for a while. But then the voices would come back again, telling her the same thing, that she was either too ugly, too old, nobody loved her, right? But at this point, her family had gone through all of their money. She had gone through all of her money and their money to fill this need, this addiction to plastic surgery. She couldn't afford it anymore, but she decides to move out because she just wanted to be left. Like, they had arranged for her to get regular counseling and mental health therapy sessions. She started skipping out on her appointments. She is no longer able to afford proper plastic surgery, so she goes into the black market to buy like black market fillers, and just start injecting herself. After a while, she couldn't even afford the black market shit. And at this time, she's living alone, destitute, alone, away from her family because they don't know what to do for her or about her. She is like scraping pennies, just trying to find whatever to quiet the voices that she's now hearing all the time. And again, she's staring in the mirror all the time. That's why, again, that's the title of this show, The Mirror Princess. That was the nickname her friends and family gave her, actually, because she would just stare in the mirror all the time. So yeah, eventually she started running out of money. She couldn't even afford the black market shit. So she starts injecting things like cooking oil into her face. Like skin cream, she would inject it into her face. Industrial silicone. That's right. Like the silicone used for industrial use, she would straight up inject that into her face. And then to top it off, she would inject cement into her face because her madness and her obsession with injecting shit into her face just got to a point where I don't even know if this is schizophrenia anymore. This is like some demonic possession shit, like vanity demons. I mean, they say like the mirror is like some kind of window into the paranormal world. So who knows? Maybe all that time staring into the mirror, maybe something was staring back at her and influencing her to the point where now she was so obsessed with getting fillers and becoming beautiful and quieting the voices that were telling her that she was so ugly that she started injecting industrial silicone and cooking oil and cement into her fucking face. So, folks, would you like to see the result? I bet your curiosity has been piqued. Let me show you what her face wound up looking. Ready? 3, 2, 1. That's her at the doctor's. So eventually, she had so much foreign substances injected into her face that they started to, because of gravity, they started to kind of shift downwards to her chin and neck area and her cheek. That's where they would all kind of pool and collect. Again, this shit here is a mixture of industrial silicone, cement, cooking oil injected right into her face. It got to the point where, and this made, I mean, they came out with like documentaries on primetime TV about this lady, having talk shows with her. This is her on the TV show. The doctors were explaining that she had about 10 pounds worth of foreign substances in her face. And a lot of them, because of gravity, had collected around her neck and cheek and chin area to the point where she was in danger of being unable to breathe. They did this whole thing on Korean TV about her, this expose, and this caught national headlines. This is right around the time I came to Korea, and I saw this shit. I was like, what in the fuck is this? And so they interviewed the doctors, and yeah, 10 pounds worth of shit she had injected into her face because of her mania. Now, the doctors did emergency surgery, multiple emergency surgeries. People in Korea started feeling really bad for her, and they started donating from all over the country to pay her medical expenses because she had like $2 in her bank account. The electricity had been turned off in her apartment, and she had been living in the dark for 6 months. Like Quasimodo, just hiding in like this little hole and not even appearing out in public. So because everyone felt so bad for her and their hearts went out to her and it was a really sad story, they started paying for doctors to help start removing some of the shit from her face so that she could, I don't know, breathe. So this is the results of those surgeries. As you can see on the right, she doesn't have as much crap on her face. She can actually like eat and talk and move her mouth. She lost the ability to close her eyes, so she would constantly have to like carry around eye drops because they did have to get rid of her eyelids. This is another picture of her later on after the surgeries. She doesn't look quite as crazy, but again, doctors did what they could, man. They did what they could. I mean, there's 10 pounds of crap in your face that they had to remove. They at least, I mean, they said it was like a miracle that she was still had her sight. I mean, she was lucky to be alive. But again, destitute, alone, living in a hole, no chance for a job ever, right? Couldn't even go outside because again, Koreans are shallow as fuck. So if you're ugly in Korea, like if you're like obese, for example, I've seen this firsthand too. People will like run up to you, like if you're waiting at the bus stop or at the subway station, or if you go shopping, people will like straight up walk up to you and be like, "Ew, you're fat." Little kids will do that. If you're like really ugly or like weird looking, people will just walk up to you and stare and be like, "Ew." I've seen it firsthand. So this lady, of course, was not getting any kinds of jobs or going outside. She spent after the show and after everything, she eventually got a job shelling nuts. That's what she did because this job required no skills, no experience. Didn't have to go outside. She would just shell nuts and sell them to the nut vendor, I guess, for 200 bucks a month. And boy, is that a cute ass dog. She's got a cute fuck. I can't get over how cute that dog is, by the way. Korean people, they love their pets, that's for sure. And I guess that dog was like her only companion later in life because, again, she was alone, living as a hermit. She eventually died in 2018. No one knows how or why, but in that case, 9 times out of 10, if it's Korea, that means they've taken their own lives. So yeah, 2018, she passed away sadly. And yeah, that is the story of Hong Myoku. Again, not quite K-pop because this is a couple years, but she was a Korean musician. She was like, this is when K-pop was in its prototype days. And this is the sad ending for Hong Myoku. She spent her few remaining years living alone with her dog, shelling nuts for 200 bucks a month before my suspicion is she sadly took her own life. So yeah, this one was kind of a short one, but story's pretty fucked up. And yep, before and after. Jesus Christ, man. So yeah, that's the story. I'm gonna keep this one short and simple. I'm gonna leave you guys alone for tonight. I'm probably gonna post this not too long after I finish ending this. But before I let you guys go, I want to give credit for a lot of these photos, especially like these early photos of Hong Myoku's childhood. I need to give credit to this one channel. This is a channel that I'm a big fan of, Poopy678. Her name is Evangeline, and she's kind of like a scholar of K-pop. She's like a K-pop historian. This girl can research the shit out of stuff. And yeah, if you want a more in-depth telling of the story of Hong Myoku, check out her channel, Poopy678. She does a very good breakdown of the Hong Myoku story. A lot of these pictures I actually got as screenshots from her channel. I just wanted to give her credit because I have a lot of respect for what she does, and I'm a huge fan of her content. So please, if any of this stuff interests you, just check it out. Check her out. Give her support. I mean, I don't care if I get a lot of views or not, but I do care if she gets a lot of views. So check her out. And yeah, it's one of the most fucked up stories in all of K-pop. There are others. Don't worry, they're coming. But yeah. So I guess I'll leave it at that, guys. It's 34 minutes, not bad. It's a little shorter than I expected this time. But tell me what you think in the comments. And I will see you guys on Wednesday, where it's going to be me and Jason and a special guest. And it's going to be a wild ride. So check it out. Okay, guys, good night.